Hi, everybody. It's Dr. Carl here, and today I'm going to talk to you about the expression exercise that is due tonight by 11:59, and also some issues that I saw arising in the memoir drafts, and some tips on how to work on those for the next draft, which is due on Tuesday. Okay, so let's get started. So the exercise that's posted is the first couple of sentences from everybody's memoirs drafts, and these are from both classes, and they're anonymous, so don't worry about that. Okay, so I've taken the first paragraph, and what I want you to do is quickly read through all of them, and then pick three that really grab you, that you really want to read on with. Like, oh, I really want to know what happens here, or what's the story, what's the mystery, okay? And then you're going to say, so maybe just highlight those or something like that, and then right under it say, this grabbed me because, okay? You might also do a little critique that says, this grabbed me because this is a story that I can relate to. This same thing happened to me, or or you could say, this never happened to me, but I was just pulled in from the moment that she started writing. But then you could also say, but after the fourth paragraph, she starts to kind of open it up and go into these general lessons that she learned, and I don't even need to know that yet. I just want to hear the story. So that would be a really good example of a critique. So you're going to go through real quick, and I've already gotten several of them posted already, and just write your quick impressions. Pick three. The directions are on the expressions sheet, and and just post it right up there. Okay, and I will publish those results so the writers can see what everybody said. All right. Okay, so things I noticed about the memoirs. They are looking really interesting. I am really excited about reading them. Some of them, I read the whole thing, of course, not just the first paragraph. And some of you, I think, need to work on pulling the reader into the story and telling the story instead of summarizing the story. Okay, what does that mean? That means instead of looking at it from the past, which of course is something that happened to you in the past, even if it only happened to you last week. Okay. Tell the story as one way you could do it is tell the story in the present tense, even though it happened a while ago. Okay, for example, let's say it was something that happened to you when you were 9. You could say, I'm 9 years old. My mother comes walking in really fast into the kitchen really fast, and she's got a strange look on her face that I don't understand. She doesn't say anything, but I can just tell something's wrong, and I'm clenching my body to hoping it's not what I'm thinking of all the terrible things it could be. Okay, the reader's there, you're in the moment. Okay, now but think about another way of doing it. Let's say you said, when I was 9 years old, I was sitting in the kitchen and then my mom came in. You see, that's a much more distant approach, and there are ways that can work, but think about the possibility of writing the story itself in the present tense, and then you don't have to stay in the present tense. Then you can pull back a little later on and say, looking back on it, I realized that da 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 da. Now that I'm older, I can see that the situation was much more complicated than I realized then, something like that. Okay, so if you're going to talk about something that happened with you in relation to another person, you want to introduce that person to the reader so they feel the same sense of closeness and intimacy, some part of the same sense of intimacy that you did. Okay, so for example, there was a student who wrote a piece for it was published in the Campus Echo. And his original draft said, I walked into the worst day of my life was when I walked into my uncle's house and saw him lying dead on the floor. Okay, that is an arresting opening, but an uncle dead on the floor is doesn't have a lot of resonance with someone who doesn't know the uncle. You see, you feel bad because someone's died, and because it's a sad day for the writer who's also a college student, but you don't know that uncle yet. So I suggested he start, and don't give a clue of what's going to happen. Just start and talk about your uncle, your great relationship with your uncle. He was so much to me. He was like my dad, and my dad wasn't there, so he kind of took over, and he taught me so many things. We went and did this, and we did that. And then, so I went over to see him one day. We're going to go fishing, and I walked in, and there he is, dead on the floor. You see, then the reader feels some part of the same amount of shock that he must have felt when he walked into his uncle's house that day. Does that make sense? I hope so. I know you can't answer me right now, but okay. So that's another thing to think about. So you're going to want to, one way to bring a person into the story, of course, is to give a lot of details. So, what did something smell like? What was the electricity like in the air? What was the mood? What was the light like? Whatever's important, but that's the key. Sometimes you get so excited about remembering all the details that you tell details that aren't really relevant. Okay, so there's a phrase in writings called the telling detail, and that just means the detail that helps you tell the story, that's relevant to the story. Because most of the stuff that happens to us when we go through the day, we don't remember even maybe at the end of the day. Not every little detail is important, okay? Especially not to this particular story you want to tell. So think about if I'm talking about every piece of clothing my cousin was wearing that day, maybe that's relevant, because maybe that clothing, is key to the story in some way. But if it's not, maybe pick one piece of clothing, or talk about, if you're going to introduce a person to us, talk about, the fact that they were 6 feet tall in the 5th grade and super skinny, and that was what made them stand out. And you were also really tall and skinny, so you sort of became friends. See, that's a relevant and telling detail, okay? Not the fact that he wore, Wrangler jeans or whatever, okay? Let's see. Okay. So you want to leave the generalities and the takeaways, the ways that you open it up and talk to the reader about how, this is significant to you, or how it might be relevant to them. That's going to be part of what you have to do. But the better you tell the story, the less you'll have to explain. Okay? So if you've told a good story and it's taught you something, and it's relevant to you, it's significant to you, and you've told it really well, your reader will get it. You won't have to justify its importance. You won't have to explain why this touched you so much, why your uncle's death touched you so much, for example, okay? Because they get it, because they knew him, so to speak, okay? So just think about it like that. You tell the story the best you can. Think about, many of you probably have told this story before, maybe not, but you've probably told it to people if it's something that's big in your life. How did you tell that story? What did you tell them? What did you start with? Okay? The storytelling instinct that you have when you're telling a story out loud, use that instinct to tell it on paper. Okay? Some people get really formal when they get on paper, and then they lose some of that immediacy and that interesting nugget. All right? Okay. That's about it for your next draft. So your next draft is due on Tuesday, April 14th. That's tomorrow. And on the assignment sheet, I put it as draft 2, because you might think of it as draft 3, but I think so. The first one writing you had to do was just really some notes and telling me this is basically what I'm going to write about. So I think of it as draft 2. That's irrelevant, really. That's not a telling detail, maybe. So what you're going to do, though, you're not going to post it to a regular assignment sheet. you're going to post it to the class discussion board, and there will be directions up on the discussion board. So go to the discussion board, and here's what it's going to tell you. You're going to post your next draft, which I want you to actually revise it, thinking about the things that we've talked about, or that I've talked to you about. And you're going to post that onto the discussion board. And then once you start seeing other people posted, you're going to pick two of your classmates' memoirs. You're going to read them and you're going to comment on them. Okay? And give helpful comments. Don't just give a comment because it sounds nice. Oh, this is really cool. I really liked it. Maybe you did. Tell them why you liked it so they can do more of that. Okay? Don't say, this is boring. Say, I lost interest when this happened. Okay, that's a helpful comment. All right. So you're going to post it to discussion board by the end of the day tomorrow. And I want everybody in the class to get two responses from two people. So if you see that a certain memoir has already gotten two responses, don't do that one. Do another one that hasn't maybe gotten any responses. Okay? So I'm hoping that this will work out and everybody will get some good feedback on their papers from someone besides me. That's it. We're at 11 minutes and 24 seconds. That's not too bad. And good luck writing the exercise and doing the drafts. And I look forward to reading them. Bye. Let's see. What do I